G'day, welcome back to Module 3 of our AdWords Fundamentals course. I'm your host, Mike Rhodes from agencysavvy.com, and in this module we're going to talk about goals. Because before you even turn an ad on, before you start running paid traffic, we need to think about the business. Funny that, isn't it? What does the business need? What's the goal of the business? What is the objective? Why are you in business? Why do you have a website? I know these may sound like ridiculously silly questions to ask, but I can't tell you the number of brick and mortar businesses that couldn't tell me why they really had a business. Is it to get people to download the tech sheets and the PDFs? Was it to generate leads? Was it to do all this other stuff? Was it to get Facebook likes? Why are they running traffic? So the most important thing here that we need to understand is that revenue model. Are you running ads to make a profit? Well, yes, ultimately, obviously, but what's the immediate goal? Because sometimes people will run traffic and they need to make, let's say that they're selling something for $100 and they want to make $50 profit on that sale. Now, that's obviously a very, very different thing to breaking even on the first sale, maybe even taking a tiny loss on the first sale because you know that introducing a customer is worth many hundreds or many thousands or many hundreds of thousands of dollars to your business over the next few years. So what are you therefore prepared to pay to acquire a new customer, a customer that you expect to keep for months or years after that? Getting very, very clear on that is ridiculously important before you start. And just doing so, whether this is for yourself or for your clients, as ridiculous as it seems, will put you in the top 20% straight away. So many people don't understand why they're doing this. They just want cheaper and cheaper and cheaper leads, which is a daft way to run an AdWords account. If you can afford to pay more than your competitors because you've worked out the model and you know what your back end is, and I'm sure Molly's talked about this in other parts of her course, then you will be in a much, much better position. If you can afford to spend $100 to acquire a customer and your competition can only afford $50, you are going to crush them all day long. Once we have our objective, we need to turn those into SMART goals. Now, you've probably heard SMART goals before, and there are a number of different definitions of this that I've found while I've been preparing these slides. I've always known it as specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. They're the ones that I've bolded on here. There are other definitions. I like those. So in other words, you want to be absolutely specific about it, and it needs to be a very concrete number, not some wishy-washy thing. It needs to be measurable. You need to be able to know when you've achieved the goal. You can't just say, I want to be happier, I want to be more profitable, or whatever it might be. It needs to be measurable. How are you going to measure it? And knowing how you're going to measure it before you start. It needs to be reasonably achievable. Like, it needs to be a stretch, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it should be achievable. It shouldn't be, I'm going to jump over a 23-story building, because that's kind of demotivating, never going to happen. It's relevant, which is why we started with the business before we got down to this level and before we start talking about the KPIs, the key performance indicators related to your business. And time-based. In other words, it's got to have a deadline on it. If all of your goals, for your business and personal, but particularly while we're talking about business and paid traffic, if you can make sure that all of your goals have those 5 things, you're golden. MTO targets. Can't remember who introduced me to this a few years ago, but I'm very glad they did. So every target that I now set, I have an MTO target. Minimum, target, and optimal. So instead of just having the target, that target number, which might be, say, I want to acquire a customer for $50, I'll have a minimum acceptable number, and then my optimal. In an ideal world, in a perfect world, what would I like to pay? So my minimum in this case might be $80. That's the worst case. But my optimal might be, say, $35. My target's $50. I'd be happy with $50. I'd be ecstatic with $35, but I can just about make money at $80. So we might start with $80 and then improve from there. But just by putting those ranges around your goal, it lets everybody else know what's acceptable and what's not. So key performance indicators, or KPIs. when you're running traffic, ideally, you want to wind this down. You want to boil it down to just one number. You can't have a client say to you, I need to be in position 1. I want to only spend $2,000 a month and I want 3,000 orders, because they're conflicting goals, clearly. So what's the one that matters most? Sometimes it is budget. Sometimes clients will say to you, you cannot spend more than $5,000 in this month, regardless of how much money the thing is making, which is ridiculous to me, but that's how a lot of businesses run, a lot of old school marketers run. They've got this pie, and there's a little slice for TV, and there's a slice for radio, and there's a slice for AdWords, and a slice for Facebook. And it doesn't matter if you can show them that your slice is making them $12 for every dollar they tip in. Sometimes they won't give you more money. But anyway, that's a different story. Have one metric that matters, so decide what that is. There's lots of different measures of success. Inside of AdWords, the easiest one, most of the time, is your CPA, your cost per conversion, so cost per lead or cost per sale. If you're doing e-com, if you're a retailer, then you might choose ROAS, which inside of AdWords is called conversion value per cost, so conversion value over cost. In other words, how many dollars back, how much conversion value do I get for every dollar that I spend? So is that 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 7 to 1? What's that number? It's probably going to be CPA when you start. That's the easiest thing to get your head around, and the easiest way to manage an AdWords account. We use a proprietary metric inside of my agency, Web Savvy, called Savvy Number, which boils down the success of an individual AdWords account into one number. And then I can track that number for every single one of our clients. I look at it every day on a dashboard, and I can see the trend of all of those clients over time. If you want to know more about dashboarding and metrics in general, check out my Data Studio course. So you want to get very, very clear on the numbers. I think that's abundantly clear from the last couple of slides. Another couple of questions for you to answer before you start. What is a new customer worth to you? So you'll hear a lot of definitions of this. Some people will talk about lifetime value. Other people will talk about 3 years value, or how much is this customer worth to you in the first 90 days. It doesn't really matter which one of these you pick, as long as you're clear on which one you are picking. I like the 90-day one personally, because yes, this client might be worth, I don't know, 50 grand to the business over the life of the whole thing, but I don't know if they'll be around that long. So how about we think about just the next 90 days, and also get very clear, are we talking revenue or are we talking profit? Generally, you probably want to focus on profit and know how much profit somebody is bringing in, because they can bring in all the revenue in the world, but if it's not profitable, it ain't helping your business. So be very clear on how you're measuring this. Is it revenue or profit, and over what time frame? But if you're having this discussion with your client, you want to know if this lead that you're getting them by running an AdWords account, is this going to be worth $100 to them, $10,000, $100,000? It's really important to know that, so that then you can put together a plan and work out how much you're going to spend to buy each lead. And obviously you're going to try and improve on that number over time, not necessarily always trying to make it smaller, but being very, very clear on what it is. Dean Jackson of I Love Marketing fame has a wonderful phrase: how much would you cheerfully pay for that customer? So this comes back to our MTOs and where on that scale are we sitting here? This is probably target. So not the worst case, and not in a perfect world, this would be lovely, but I'd happily pay $50 to buy a new customer, or $500 or $5,000, whatever it is for that business. Great question to ask of your clients. And the last one for this module is, what's the maximum allowable CPA? So it's just another way of talking about what we've already talked about. So we've talked about MTOs and different ways of thinking about this. What's my target CPA? If you're going to use CPA as the metric that matters inside of AdWords, then be very, very clear with your client. Okay, what's the worst case? What's the maximum allowable CPA? Let's say it's $80. Well, let's aim for that for the first 4 weeks. Let's make sure that we can get you sales for that or better. And then once we're sure that we can do that, now let's start improving things and try and increase your profit. Sound fair? Great, let's go. Now, you can be aware of the target at that point, but you really, really want to know the maximum allowable. This is one of the first questions that I ask people when I'm auditing AdWords account. If you've got an AdWords account you want me to audit, get in touch. But I'll always ask, what's this maximum allowable CPA? In other words, for me, really, it's kind of analogous to the break-even. What's your break-even level? Because until I know that, I don't know how much potential profit is available in this AdWords account that I'm looking at. I don't know if it's currently underwater and it is losing money every time an ad runs, potentially. Or, with a little bit of tweaking, could we massively improve this thing because actually it's profitable as is, but wow, just a little bit here, a little bit there, this thing could really improve. So being very, very, very clear on that before you start. All right, so that's enough prep now. We've toured the interface. We've talked about the business. We've talked about our goals. In the next module, we'll dig into the first part of putting together your first AdWords account, and we'll start talking about keywords. I'll see you there.